J.D. Vance, denied service at restaurant. What he did next shocked everyone. This rude and arrogant voice disrupted the peace of the entire restaurant. "Get out of here immediately!" J.D. Vance couldn't believe his ears. In an instant, all eyes were on him. The voice of the waiter echoed through the luxurious atmosphere of the restaurant, and J.D. felt instantly excluded. The waiter's words were cold and dismissive, implying J.D. didn't deserve to be there. As the other customers exchanged puzzled glances, J.D. closed his eyes. He had lived through poverty, exclusion, and scorn many times before. But here, in this upscale restaurant, the moment of rejection reminded him of his old hometown. This was a place far removed from the hardships of his past. He heard the waiter shout, "Get out of here!" again. But this time, J.D.'s eyes weren't filled with anger, only deep silence. He slowly stood up, but instead of immediately reacting with anger, he took a deep breath. Something had shifted inside him. This kind of exclusion didn't affect him anymore. Throughout his life, he had always been the one left out. But the moment he discovered his inner strength, everything changed. This time, he chose to put his anger aside and do what was right. A few people sitting at tables nearby began to whisper to each other as they heard the waiter's words. Some rolled their eyes, while others muttered under their breath, "What's this guy doing here?" The words stung, but J.D. knew nothing could take him off his path. This restaurant was just another place where people would try to push him down. But he wasn't here to prove anything to them. He was here to seize the opportunity to move forward on his own terms. After a brief silence, the waiter repeated in a loud voice, "Get out of here immediately!" J.D. took a deep breath. His eyes locked onto the waiter, but instead of anger, there was calm resolve in them. "What you say doesn't matter," J.D. said, his voice steady. Everyone was watching him, but J.D.'s gaze burned with a fire. There was no sign of fury, only determination. In his eyes, despite the pain of his past, there was belief in the future. J.D.'s words echoed in the restaurant's luxurious space, the opposite of the waiter's cold remarks. "I'm not leaving. I have every right to be here. Not everyone, but I deserve to be here." A few people, now aware of J.D.'s unwavering stance, began to look at him differently. There was a subtle but powerful shift in the atmosphere, as if J.D. was revealing a quiet strength that made his stance undeniable. J.D. smiled slightly, his mind working as he made a plan. He turned to the restaurant manager, who had been standing nearby, observing the situation. "I'm not here to be pushed out by anyone. I'll show them," J.D. said, his voice firm. Without hesitation, he tucked his phone away and walked back toward the entrance. The waiter's arrogant gaze shifted, replaced by uncertainty. The customers fell silent, all eyes on J.D. The manager hurried over. "What would you like to do?" he asked. J.D., calm and resolute, responded, "I just want my seat, right here in this restaurant. When that waiter realizes his mistake, he'll ask me to come back. But by then, it'll be too late." After a moment of stunned silence, the manager quickly called the waiter over. The waiter, now red-faced, lowered his head and apologized. J.D. looked at the waiter once more, but this time there was no anger, only the quiet satisfaction of inner strength. "Mistakes happen," he said, his voice calm. "Everyone has a path. Mine starts right here at the door of this restaurant." With that, J.D. moved toward an empty table. The atmosphere in the restaurant seemed to shift once again, as the customers realized that J.D.'s quiet power was unmatched. When his meal was served, J.D. paused for a moment and looked around. In this upscale setting, his eyes seemed to absorb the atmosphere. After a few moments, he took a sip of water and, with his thoughts in mind, shared something inspiring. "People once asked me how I'd make a living and which doors would open for me. But I always said, it's not about waiting for doors to open for me, it's about walking through them. No matter how hard it gets, rising up again every day and walking my own path, regardless of others' falls or dismissals. Because in the end, The smallness in others' eyes means nothing when compared to the greatness inside of you. Every word he spoke touched those around him. The people in the restaurant began to see how JD had risen above the pain of his past and how his belief in himself had carried him through. Challenges were temporary. True strength lay in how we responded to them. JD had shown the waiter and the manager not just his past mistakes, but also the power of forgiveness and the strength of the human spirit. That day, the atmosphere of the restaurant changed. JD didn't just leave as a customer. He left as someone who had shown the strength within him, inspiring everyone